Are you struggling to come up with original content week in and week out? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients, let them talk about what they care about most, and never run out of content ideas again. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. Today, I'm joined by Shlomi Ron. He is the CEO of the Visual Storytelling Institute. He's also the author of the new book, Total Acuity, Tales with Marketing Morals to help you create richer visual brand stories. Shlomi, welcome to the show. How's it going today?
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You and I had a great chat here recently, and I thought unpacking a few of the stories from your book would be great for B2B marketers who are listeners of the show. Before we jump into today's topic, which we're going to be unpacking a couple of the stories and the marketing morals, as you say in the book, from a few of the stories from your book. Before we jump into that, though, Shlomi, I would love for you to give us a little bit of background on yourself and what you and the team at the Visual Storytelling Institute are up to these days.
Awesome. Yeah, so my journey started 15 plus years ago. This pretty much is my career in digital marketing, both on the agency, but I would say primarily on the brand side, working for major brands like IBM, Nokia, American Express, and others. And I would say about 5 years ago, when I moved down from New York to Miami, that's where I started to think, how can I create my own imprint based on what I've learned? And one of the things that I should say throughout my career was always nursing my side hustles. And that tends to revolve in two areas. One is classic Italian cinema. I know it's kind of weird, but I took this as a passion project. Once a week, I would take Italian language classes. And as I was moving up the levels, we teach textbooks and watched films. And that's kind of threw me into starting my own blog, cafepellicola.com, where I reviewed films. I also ran some mini festivals where I would curate the films and then run a post-screening Q&A, which was a lot of fun. So that was one aspect. The other aspect was my father-in-law, Buki Schwartz. He was one of the early pioneers of video art, started in the mid-70s. So he passed away in 2009. And today we actually managing in his estate, working with different museums. And his work is collected in major galleries and museums like the Smithsonian, the Whitney, and the Guggenheim, and others. So basically, the big lesson is really pay attention to your side hustle. Sometimes your big story is waiting for you down the road. In my case, I kind of combined the two, the visual media side and my interest in marketing throughout my career. And that's where I started the Visual Storytelling Institute. And the main problem we try to solve is really the major communication noise that businesses are facing today, regardless of their size. And this communication noise, when you think about it, is really comprised of two parts. On one hand, you have a staggering information overload. We're talking about if in the 70s people were exposed to 500 ads a day, these days it's over 5,000, which is insane. And this information overload is costing the US economy really over $900 billion a year, which is an amazing number. And on the flip side of the information overload, you see a really fragmented attention span. So people are really overwhelmed with content and they're choosing very carefully what they're going to be consuming. So on one hand, you might say, they are completely blind to banners and ads, but on the same time, they are binging on a Netflix series. So it's really a selective attention span. So with that, I really started the Visual Storytelling Institute to really help marketers really break through the clutter. And this is, by the way, according to eMarketer, a survey from last February, is the second most important challenge for CMOs, just so you know. And so we are operating in 4 areas. One is training. So I developed a training framework for training clients on how to articulate their brand narrative, how to transform it into visual stories, and then how to market them across channels. So that's on the training side. I'm active both on the corporate side and also on the academic side. So I taught actually at the Idea Center, Miami-Dade College, full semester course. And this fall, I'm going to be teaching a brand storytelling course at the business school at the University of Miami. So that's on the training side. There, we also cover production, where sometimes we get clients that want a polished visual story. So that could be explainer videos, presentations, sketching, anything that is visual in nature. The other part, we do consulting, advisory, because it's a kind of a nascent space. And of course, you need to educate the marketplace. So we have a variety of thought leadership programs like the Visual Storytelling Today podcast that I'm doing. There is also the VSI blog. So if you guys are listening and Googling visual storytelling, you're most likely going to bump into one of my articles.
I love the way that you talked about attention spans there, Shlomi. I see a lot of people talking about, we have shorter attention spans, and
Yep.
we've actually had guests on the show kind of reiterate what you mentioned there is, yes, we have very short attention spans and we're very picky and choosy and we can move on from things very quickly.
Yep.
But there are times where we are devoted into content.
Exactly.
We delve in deep and we binge things. And so the word that you used is selective. And I think we as marketers need to think about the fact that our buyers aren't just distracted, but they are also very, very selective. And so
Exactly.
we need to approach them with that in mind. So with all of that in mind, Shlomi, with kind of your background on visual storytelling, we're going to unpack a couple of stories today. The first is one out of your book called The Lonely AirPod. The other, The Talking Waiting Room. Let's talk about this story, The Lonely AirPod, and tell us a little bit about the story, and then we'll dig into the moral that comes out of that for marketers today.
Okay, great. I'm just going to preface on 2 areas. First of all, when I started the VSI, the visual storytelling, I Googled, what it means. And primarily it was related to graphic design, photography, and filmmaking. So I had to come up with my own definition. What is visual storytelling in the context of marketing? And my definition is any marketing strategy that you do that has 3 conditions. One, that you use the 3-act story structure, which is setting conflict resolution. 2, that you put your customer at the heart of the story. It's not about you as a brand. And 3, that you use a visual format to communicate your story through. So that could be images, videos, infographics, all the way up to AR and VR. So that's just to kind of level set the playing field about visual storytelling, how I see it at least. And then when I decided to write Total Acuity, just a few words about that. So acuity really refers to sharpness of vision. So the ability to discern fine details. So when I wrote the book, my assumption was really that we all carry, there's basically, and this is not only true for business, but also for our personal lives. We operate, in a world where we try to figure out meanings. And the way we kind of process meanings or generate meanings from new information, let's put it in the B2B context, for example, then you run a campaign on Instagram, let's say. So in order for you to create that campaign, you have the personal story you're telling yourself. That's your expertise in marketing on Instagram, for example. Then you do your research on your customer just to get a better sense of it. And then you come out with the external story, which is the actual ad. And that's really typically what we say it's an edited story, because you have to kind of match it and adapt it to your audience. So what happens on the other side, your customer sees your ad and immediately they parse it against their personal experiences, memories, and stuff they've done, and what they feel about your brand. Once they reach a meaning, what it really means to them, then they kind of express it externally. And that could be either ignoring it completely, or it could actually give you a comment on the higher level response. But it's really important to realize that everything that we do is an interplay between the story you tell yourself and the story you actually communicate out. So that's kind of a long preface to what I wanted to say about the two stories, but it's important to understand that the stories in this context. So the first story I'm going to talk about is called Lonely AirPod. And just so you know, I picked up really personal stories that happened to me in real life and generated visual storytelling principle, marketing moral that anybody could relate to. So here I took a trip to Tel Aviv in Israel and walking down in the marketplace with my AirPods on, with the music blazing. It was kind of wintry afternoon. And as I was walking around and kind of looking at the different stores, I was making my way to meet my parents in a restaurant. And we eventually met there, and I went to the bathroom just to kind of wash my hands before we start the meal. So as I was kind of start washing my hands and I was looking at the mirror, and all of a sudden I lost one AirPod. So it just made me realize, wow, this is so crazy, because I just bought them, the week before. So the blow was very kind of hard on me. So I excused my parents, told them, I'm going to take a quick run and kind of retrace my route. And, again, telling my story that I'm going to find any second, because, it couldn't be that far. Just kind of give you another example of the internal, external stories you tell yourself. And obviously I couldn't find that AirPod at the end, I just lost it. So I use that story, which is most likely happened to a lot of you listening, to kind of communicate a story that in this case had a bad ending. And this is something that most marketers, regardless if you are B2B or B2C, tend to ignore. They tend to kind of paint a rosy picture of their content. And I think to be very authentic, and you got to show some imperfection, vulnerability. And sometimes your story ends on a negative note, but it's a good thing because you're just human, and this is you kind of sharing a slice of life. So that's the first story.
I love the story there and what you said there about, marketers not always ending everything on a happy ending. We've leaned into this just to kind of give some examples, I think, where this can play out. We released an episode here on B2B Growth. James and I did in our Behind the Curtain series, probably over a year ago, 3 ways that our service sucks. And we talked about ways that we were falling short as a company and things that we noticed that were wrong internally. And, in our opinion, that authentic story of, hey, we're growing and we're figuring these things out. And here's what we've kind of figured out. Maybe someone can identify with that and learn from it. 1, we talked about the next steps that we were trying to solve those problems with. And then 3, I think that it humanized our brand a bit, talking about, hey, we don't always get it right. It's not always these polished, perfect case studies that we're trusting less and less. So if you're looking to build trust and credibility, which I think every sales and marketing professional worth their salt is trying to do that, then think about this concept of, okay, not every story has a happy ending. Where can I tie some of those? Where can I tie some of those in to my storytelling and my content? Hey everybody, Logan with Sweetfish here. You probably already know that we think you should start a podcast if you haven't already. But what if you have and you're asking these kinds of questions? How much has our podcast impacted revenue this year? How's our sales team actually leveraging the podcast content? If you can't answer these questions, you're actually not alone. This is why Casted created the very first content marketing platform made specifically for B2B podcasting. Now you can more easily search and share your audio content while getting greater visibility into the impact of your podcast. The marketing teams at Drift, Terminus, and here at Sweetfish have started using Casted to get more value out of our podcasts, and you probably can too. You can check out the product in action at casted.us/growth. That's casted.us/growth. All right, let's get back to the show. So Shlomi, tell us about the second story. This one is the talking waiting room, right?
Yeah, exactly. So last year, we actually bought a new house here in Miami, which is right in the Coral Gables area and next to the University of Miami. And as we kind of starting to look to redecorate, we were on a mission to buy some outdoors furniture. So we, you just Google, what is the closest place, or, look at reviews. So we found one major furniture chain that we saw that there was a lot of great reviews about it. So we went there. And as we were entering the store, we saw, sometimes furniture stores do that when they place a very conspicuous place, kind of what I call eye candy furniture. These were it were actually a pair of red aluminum chairs that I thought could fit greatly in our front porch. So I thought, let's do that. We tried them and they fell a little bit, hard. So we think let's find some pillows to put them on. So we were able to find, after a while, the right colors that would match the red pair of chairs. And then we went on our way to pay. And we were told, in order for you to get those chairs, you need to drive 20 minutes away to our fulfillment center, and that's where you're going to get them. So we drove there, we arrived there, and we gave our receipts. And then we were told, just wait here and we'll get it for you. So we were sitting there. Obviously, they had a very comfy waiting room after all their furniture store. And the reception there was terrible. So there was nothing to do on your phone, so you end up staring at the wall. And on the wall, there was an old picture of an antique store from way back when the store probably started. And it looked like the, quintessential antique store, where you have the rocking chairs in the front. So as I was staring at this picture, it just dawned on me that actually I don't really care about these red pair of aluminum chairs. All I really wanted was really, rocking chairs. So I was, all jazzed up about this. I kind of talked to my wife. I convinced her, let's, forget about this, trendy aluminum chairs, and let's cancel the order. And we did that. And we just, a week after, we bought two white rocking chairs, and now they are greatly positioned in our front porch, which that's the end of the story. But the big lesson here is, especially if you are a B2B business that has some offline presence, I cannot stress enough the importance of your brand experience offline. Like this story suggests, obviously this is my personal experience, kind of looking at the picture that kind of activated an interest in replacing an order. But it's really important how you design your branded environment, because this is another aspect of visual storytelling, where how you incorporate different elements in your branded store or branded reception, anywhere that customers are interacting. Any object you put there actually works as a trigger that could really facilitate a behavior that you haven't thought about it. So I would definitely urge you to create a visual storytelling experience that's really aligned with your brand objectives and what you're really trying to accomplish.
Yeah. In this case, it actually worked not in favor of the store, because they convinced you to buy something else that wasn't for theirs.
Exactly.
So I don't know if that will, take place that many times, but it does drive home the importance of what visuals are you putting in front of your customers, in your ads, in your content, in your reception area, when your folks are on Zoom chatting to potential customers at events, all of those sorts of things. What story are you telling with the visuals that you put in front of everybody at every touch point, online and offline? And this is a completely offline story. So I think it drives that home a good bit, Shlomi.
I just want to add, because, going back to the title of the book, which is Total Acuity, find details when they map to your customer personal experience of memories or belief systems or any adventure you had in the past, then it just works like a trigger, like in my case here. So it's really important to really, I would say, the word stage or curate your online and offline branded environment very carefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are two things to really keep in mind there, Shlomi. Well, this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it, Shlomi. If there's any one listening to this who wants to check out some of your content from VSI or reach out to you or maybe find the book, what's the best place for them to go for any next steps from here?
Yeah, you can check out more about the Visual Storytelling Institute on visualstorytell.com. And if you have any question, you can reach out to me. I'm at shlomi@visualstorytell.com. And I'm also on Instagram, and you can reach me also on LinkedIn. And the book is available on Amazon, both ebook and print.
I love it. All right. Well, Shlomi, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
I hate it when podcasts incessantly ask their listeners for reviews, but I get why they do it, because reviews are enormously helpful when you're trying to grow a podcast audience. So here's what we decided to do. If you leave a review for B2B Growth in Apple Podcasts and email me a screenshot of the review to james@sweetfishmedia.com, I'll send you a signed copy of my new book, Content-Based Networking, How to Instantly Connect with Anyone You Want to Know. We get a review, you get a free book. We both win.